We're now going to take a different view on, yesterday we had Paul Trayman talk about what FazWaz was doing in this market. FazWaz is part of Lifull Connect, and Lifull Connect has undergone a bit of a revolution over the last 3 months, having gone from ownership by Lifull to now part ownership by Lifull and management by the FazWaz guys. And Mike Kenner, who's the managing director of the whole group, is going to talk about A, what's happened, which I think would be great, well, depending on what you're going to share, and B, is building how you do build a global PropTech leader, but using AI as part of the core basis of that business. And I think that's going to be super interesting. So, Mike, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thursday morning at the PPW. I'm sure a lot of you have been here before, and we're all probably thinking, why did we go out last night drinking? So, but what we're going to talk about today is not how AI is going to change the world, but this is more basically what happened, as Simon said, with our business, with Lifull Connect, and a very touch on how we see AI implementing our business, okay? So before we start, I'm just going to give you the history because these businesses are relatively misunderstood. So I'm just going to give you a background on what just happened. So Trovit was formed in 2006. So this is a 19-year-old business. This is an old legacy business when we look at the businesses that we've inherited. And in 2014, there's a Japanese classified company called Lifull that decided to go on the global expansion initiative. And they acquired Trovit. A few years later, 2019, they also decided to double down on this and they acquired a company called Matula. Now, why this is all relevant is in the room, a small percentage of people have worked or been shareholders, been managers of one of these companies. And actually, in terms of the group, a lot of you have probably interacted with our ecosystem. So what they are is real estate classified, they're real estate aggregators. But the question is what is an aggregator? But we'll get into that slightly later. So moving forward, the thesis was moving closer to the transaction. So effectively, this was kind of defined by Simon. This is Simon's kind of ethos that was defined in Matula, which is acquiring assets to get closer to a transaction. So Lifull Connect went on a big acquisition spree of buying portals, CRMs, and eventually a transaction business. So in 2023, they acquired FazWaz, and the question is, was this a downfall of Lifull, or this is where it all starts for Lifull Connect, okay? So a bit about me. We took ownership of the company 2 months ago, and 3 weeks I've been on holiday for that one. But I spent the last 12 years in Thailand building FazWaz and looking at PropTech companies, and that's really my background, okay? And then I mentioned we just took over the company, so we're very, very new to this. And I don't really follow the playbook. I mean, I've been at these conferences for the last 7, 8 years, and I've heard everything from classifiers only, moving to the transaction, iBuyer, just trying to think what else we've heard here. Well, definitely blockchain. So we've kind of thought, how are we doing this and, what we're doing. So I am skeptical, and I like to push against the wind and say, look, some of these things might not turn out exactly the way we'd be seeing that we're hearing on stage. And I believe as a company, I'm a traditionalist, I believe in profitability. So profitability over hype and execution, that's kind of how we see the business. And this quote that I've stuck here, which is, the fundamentals, because we're seeing a lot of businesses being totally disrupted by actually not focusing on the fundamentals of the business and talking about other things. So, sorry, 1 second. So the question is what is this Lifull Connect thing? I had trouble understanding it. I went to 10 different people external to the company to understand what the company was. And I got all different answers. And when I asked 5 people inside the company, a few people were even like, why are you asking this question? We don't fully understand it. So the first thing was define what we are, because how can we build and scale businesses if we don't fundamentally know who we are and where we're going to go to? So this was one of the first questions we had to ask ourselves. But before we even started, we're talking about day one of acquiring a large PropTech global player. What did we do? Okay? So the first thing is, anyone who's watched football, managers come in, for a new team, what you do is get rid of all the management, right? And there's a level of either they're incompetent or you want control. You can choose each one of what you want to. So what we did is, the reality is Japan out, because we wanted to have total control over the company and change the ethos and agenda and the direction of where this company is going. The second one is that I inherited a company, a very complex company, which is, there was no instruction manual, zero instruction manual. So it's like building an IKEA furniture desk without an instruction manual, and you've got hundreds of screws and putting together. So I made a very good decision. The founders brought in Maurizio Silva, who understands the business. He wrote the instruction manual. So he's now with us as part of the founder team, helping us really build the future of the company. And the other issue I've got is that our business spans all the way from LATAM to Europe to Southeast Asia. But when we talk about LATAM, it's a Spanish-speaking entity, and so is Spain. And the problem I've got is no hablo español. That's probably the only Spanish I can speak. So I don't speak Spanish, and running a company that has such a large element is going to be extremely challenging. So we have to make the smart moves. The next thing we're doing is we're bringing in profitability first. Yep. So profitability has to be part of everything we've done. We've inherited assets where Lifull has been openly, because they're a public company, of what's happened, and they've walked into a right mess. But we are now focusing only on profitability. In the first 7 weeks we've been back, I've been away 3 of them, we are now profitable. And that's a testament to how fast we're actually going to move on this after restructuring the company. The next bit, I don't know if everyone's probably worked for corporate companies before. And I don't know if anyone's worked for a Japanese corporate company. I know some people have. I mean, I think Gonzalo's somewhere around and a few others. But they love meetings and agendas and boards and budgets, and it goes on and on and on and on. And no one is actually really executing anything there. So the reality is that one of our ethoses on the walls of all offices says, get shit done. Now the question is really what is shit? So we're kind of removing the S and the H because it sounds quite terrible. But we are all about execution. We don't talk, we walk in and we start doing things, right? We learn by failing. That is how we run the companies. So the other part is bringing back to what a company hasn't had, because look, once upon a time, these companies were founder-led driven businesses. So we're bringing this back, and the honest truth is we are openly, happily, we'll take risks. We will move very quickly and take risks, and we are not going to overthink anything too much. So there's lots of assets to play with, which is quite cool. So look, when we looked at Lifull Connect, it was like, what was it? They had portals, aggregators, transactions, CRMs, 50 countries, no one knew what it was, hundreds of millions of users a month, tens of thousands of partners. We had to break it down very, very simple to understand. So this is basically it. We have 3 different regions running 3 different models, and they're 3 different businesses. In LATAM, we sell leads. Very, very simple. In Europe, we sell clicks, we sell traffic. And in Southeast Asia, we sell property. That's very simple. That's how we view it, the Lifull Connect business now. And sorry, it will not be called Lifull Connect in the future anyway. We're rebranding, and I'll work this one out later. But this is how we see the business. Very, very, very simple. Now, the issue we have inside the business, we've acquired so many different assets. We've got so many brands, and these is only a fraction of the brands we own inside the company. So we're now going through an identity crisis, even on a regional level. So when we look at LATAM, we're probably going to have to rebrand. I mean, we were thinking, yesterday I was having a joke, LATAM 365, Ricardo will like that one, or 361, whatever you want to call this, but we're probably going to have to go and brand each region and find an identity, because in terms of our business, it's been slightly lost. But at least we now know who we are. 3 different businesses, running 3 different models, all having 3 different strategies going for leadership. And this is the fundamental problem that we had inside the business. So when I look at the business, I look at everything very, very simple. I try to break it down because I'm a simple guy, right? I really am, and it has to be, if I can't understand it, then I don't know what I'm talking about. So these are the 3 models we run. Aggregation, which is we sell traffic to portals, portals where we sell leads to agencies, and transaction, we sell properties to people, right? So I just like, how much are we making per visit for each model? So the aggregation, the CPC, is obviously the lowest form of monetization of our business. Portals being slightly higher, and this is a question around emerging markets. Will classifiers exist? And I've got an answer for that in a second. And transaction being the largest. Now, anyone sitting here would be thinking, well, which box do I like? It's not Connect 4. We want the red box, right? So we're moving towards a transaction-led strategy. Now, fundamentally, when we look at portalized assets or the classifieds business in emerging markets, for us, it's dead, it doesn't work, and we've seen this in established markets, and companies have got moats around their businesses. But on the classified side, if you got rid of all of them, they don't come back in the same form. even in more established markets. But in emerging markets, everyone has tried to go after that model because all the funds, specifically Southeast Asia, are Singaporean-based, fundamentally defining what happens in Singapore would happen elsewhere. They've all got it wrong. A lot of money has been burned, and we're not going to go and do this. So we are focusing on a transaction-led strategy across our businesses is key. And the honest truth is we've got a great case study for this. So, we've got lots of people, including Simon and Gonzalo and Marissa, been in there and said, how do you go from search to close? We've done it in Thailand. So this is kind of a case study we're running. So the aggregators were there selling traffic to portals. They had a few million clicks, call it 1 million. They're making 10,000 euros a month, right? That was it. Eventually, they acquired property portals. So Dot Property and HitFlap, which are two relatively strong, good portals in the region. And they moved that monetization up 15-fold to 150,000 a month. Now FazWaz is in there doing transaction and doing 2.5 million euros a month. So you can see the progression from search to close. And I think, look, the way I think about this is like we have 50 countries in the portfolio, 50 countries. What would happen if we rolled out this model in every country? Now, I can see my co-founder looking at me like I'm a lunatic, and I'm like, I'm not saying we're going to go, listen, I'm not Kian. I watched him do this for Lamudi, saying everyone's going to be number 2, we're going to roll out transactions every market and kill everyone. Well, we're definitely not. But what is very interesting is this blueprint, does it work on other countries? And we're about to play the game and find out. So the focus of the company moving forward is SEA and LATAM. So we set up FazWaz with nothing. We have nothing there. We suddenly look at these markets, we've got millions of leads in all these different places, and we're like, for us, it's like a playground, and that's how we're looking at it. Very, very simple. Lots of leads enter into transaction business, and we're like, this makes it a lot easier. And I understand that LATAM is different from Southeast Asia, and Mexico is different from Thailand, but fundamentally, the core things remain the same. So we're looking now at rolling out the transaction business across different regions in LATAM and Southeast Asia. And why? Why not? We didn't buy the company back and sacrifice huge amounts of money to not go and do this. We didn't just do it to sit still and run the same model the business has been running before. So we are going to go into aggressive expansion. Now the question is, next year when this all comes back and with the PPW in Bangkok, please God, I hope Bjorg is wrong when it doesn't go to Kuala Lumpur, because this is the best city in Southeast Asia by a mile, that do we do what we say we're going to do? That's the question. Because you see a lot of people come up here and say stuff, and I'm spending last year moving my business to the blockchain because I thought that was where it was all going, all my inventory. So the question is, do we roll out this strategy and go into transactions? I think the question is that we have a lot of conviction around what we're about to do, so we're about to have a go. And it's like, we can make the plan and do this. So that's effectively where we're taking the business to kind of become that global leader we're talking about. But now touching on the AI stuff, because I know this is a theme of the conference. And again, I agree with Bjorg about this. It's a load of buzzwords being thrown around here. And it's AI this and it's AI that. Descriptions is now AI. Listen, all this stuff was happening before. So the question is what is really AI to us? And we're questioning, is it really artificial intelligence or is it automated information? And that's kind of how I'm thinking. So I sat down with our CTO. So I didn't sit down with him. I called him because he's in Spain. The Spanish CTO, Eugene's our Thai CTO. And I asked him, what does AI mean to you? And he said, it's a black box that learns where you put in inputs and outputs, right? And that's it, right? And it's learning and it's doing something. And I'm thinking, a lot of this stuff isn't doing it. So in terms of automated information, which is the way we're looking at this, 1 second. Number one, AI is never going to replace agents ever. I'll tell you why. Because we were already replacing them. This is already happening. All we're looking at the replacement theory is you analyze what an agent does, you break it down into different work streams, and you automate different work streams. And eventually, you've automated the whole process, right? It's not like this is suddenly, wow, it does everything. It's automating part of the process, right? So AI isn't replacing agents, and that's why it's making them smarter. That's definitely our theory. We feel that lead qualification automation, look, most of what we're talking about in AI is language models, So basic advanced chatbots that existed that can now speak back to you and understand more context around what you're saying. So we feel that definitely we can gain efficiency on automation. On the lead qualification side, sure, we can get AI agents, voice agents, to call up every single lead that we have every minute. We've got one. It's called Paul AI. Paul's the co-founder. It sounds like Paul. It's really annoying, and it calls everyone up. And then just imagine you've got loads of voice agents calling up everyone all day long. This won't last. So the question is, at what point does it all get out of control here with voice agents calling everyone? So it's a good question. AI pricing models. Like the fact that real estate is still a static asset class is ridiculous. I come from a banking background, so you've got a supply side that's moving, which you've got dynamic pricing. You put a house on the market as $1 million, it sits there as $1 million. At least now we can have dynamic pricing for real estate. So if you get dynamic pricing for classifiers, how boring is that? Dynamic pricing for real estate. Based on the market condition, the price is moving. That would create more liquidity in the market, right? That would be lovely. And also turning in, the data into real insights. The best use case that I've got for ChatGPT or AI is it helped me acquire the business from Lifull Connect, because I had a super intelligent thing next to me that could help me formulate my ideas and vision to what the Japanese were doing. So yeah, for us, it's just another tool. Well, I'm not buying into this stuff that this is all going to change the world. I saw agentic search, and I've seen free text search. I'm like, look, we already do a lot of the stuff already without this AI. We don't have ranked properties by people listing. We rank properties based on what people are searching for, and the search results display them. This has been happening for years. It's just the classifiers do this by getting paid, ad feeds. Sorry. Oh, running out of time. So look, how we're actually using this, right? What we're saying is this is what we're actually doing already, and we've always been doing this. And this is basically the fact of we're plugging this stuff to a black box, it's learning, and it's popping out stuff. So all our lead routing and scoring has always been used machine learning. We've been doing this for ages. I don't know how the leads go to the agents. This thing that we send it to works this one out itself based on performance and a load of other variables, and don't ask me because I don't know, because our tech team built this for us. But it's a smart thing that makes sure the right agents get the right leads. It's been happening for a long, long while. The other thing is that we've been doing AVMs, you plug in inputs, it spits out outputs. So price is there. So the AVMs has been doing this for ages. We've had an AVM for 5 years. We don't use it anymore because it tried to take over the world. But we did have an AVM that was working, and then that's what basically this model is. The other one is optimizing click conversion, same as Google. We work out what clicks we send which portals. It's been doing this for ages, and we use machine learning to understand this. It's a continuous process they've built internally that's optimizing our output to where we send clicks to on the CPC side. And our search recommendation, as mentioned before, we've been doing this for a while. In terms of when you go onto FazWaz, it's learning based on the consumer behavior and demographic that's going on. And this has been years inside the system. But now it's been classed as AI. So sure, that's what we'll be doing. So I'm not being contrary here but AI only matters to us, and this is something which is important to us, if it actually moves the needle. A lot of this stuff I'm looking at is not going to change fundamentally the business. In the end, people will need to buy properties. A lot of these things are not going to move the needle enough, in my opinion. Sorry. Okay. So where we see it working in the transaction, just to clear up, is pre-qualified buyers. It's great. It can filter out time wasters. You can call up all the clients very, very quickly. One button, call up 1,000 people. We'll find out who's real. That's very useful for us. That will help us get efficiency gains. The second one is hopefully, we don't need to use lawyers anymore. That would be great. Using lawyers at the fees they charge us, if this could be disrupted by creating legal documents and frameworks very, very quickly, that would be very, very useful for us in moving, helping automate more of the transaction process. So I'm just going to click through, otherwise it's going to. So connecting buyers with the right agents. Sure, we're doing this already. And fraud detection. We have about 30 to 50% of our business is probably leakage in terms of our agents taking deals outside of our company. Utilizing, some better systems, we can help identify this. And that's a game changer. If you could increase revenue by more than 10%. So if we can use some of these AI and automation tools to help detect fraud or leakage inside the company, that would be very, very useful as well. So I've kind of run out of time, but I'm just going to go on to my final thoughts. Sorry, the slide is not working. So the future of the company for us is transactions. We're going to be a classified-led transaction business. Paul spoke about it yesterday. And we're going to be going into more regions in Southeast Asia, going deeper into the current regions we are, and hitting LATAM. And that's kind of the future of the company. I think you can ask me anything you want to about the deal structure. I'm more than happy to ask any questions that are there. So thank you very much, and Thursday morning, and thank you, everyone.
Do you want to give me this, and I'm going to get them to fix this. All right, that would be useful. Thank you. Okay, Mike. What I like about the business is, you've probably caught it on from Paul talking yesterday and Mike talking today, is rather pragmatic in their approach. No nonsense, not stuffing around, doesn't make sense, can I make money? If yes, do it. If no, don't do it.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep, correct.
Right, so some questions that come out of this. Too many projects in too many markets. What are your top 1 or 2 priorities for the next 12 months?
Yeah, in terms of countries, obviously, Thailand's been a core base of us, but that's happening without any real efforts now. Mexico is now, for us, the top priority on the list. So it would be Mexico, followed by probably Colombia, and then going back to Philippines, Indonesia. If you said that was the order of the countries where we're focused on the priorities, yeah.
Great. And that's fundamentally driven by the assets you already have?
Correct, yeah. So if we look at what we have in terms of how much traffic and leads, which is the foundation of building into the transaction, this is probably where we're the strongest and the most opportunity.
Right. Now, if you didn't have the assets already,
Yep.
what would you do next?
So if we didn't have the assets yet, the direction would change. So obviously we wouldn't be swinging across the world to Mexico when we're in Southeast Asia. So probably focus on a Southeast Asian only led strategy if we didn't have the assets. But the reality is that we do, so the dynamic changes.
So this is absolute pragmatism at work.
Yes, correct.
If you think about it. Can you stick with CPC on the aggregator side? Even 5 to 6 years ago, all the customers of the Lifull Connect aggregators hated the model and wanted performance-based.
Well, I think the question is that the CPC, our business in terms of traffic has been declined. We're recovering it, but the product needs to be better. So I think the question is, if we can innovate the product and make this slightly better and add more value to the consumers, then yes. So we think that with some tender loving care, we can turn around the CPC business and make it into a product that people actually like. So yes.
People want traffic.
Yeah,
I mean, I've spoken to enough number 2s, 3s and 4s out there over the last 24 months, and the one thing they all say is, how do I get traffic? How do I close the gap? Now let them think about then conversion of that traffic to performance-based at the other end, rather than you're just selling eyeballs.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Which agent work streams and workflows will you focus on to automate the workload? And which ones wouldn't you touch?
I mean, good question, Harvey. I think I don't have the answers. I mean, Harvey, I've been back at 7 weeks into the company, so I think this is not a question for me. As trying to lead the company or co-leading the company or work with someone leading it, I have to focus only on high-level strategy only. And so we don't know. I don't know. I'm not meant to know these details. So in terms of the workflows, not sure. That's up to a very smart team to work out. Yep.
Okay. Now that you sort of answered the next one, right? Why don't you apply a transaction model in LATAM? Because you talked about Mexico and Colombia. Why bother chasing LATAM considering your lack of familiarity? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Given it will distract you from the successful SEA business?
Okay, so I guess the first thing is there's now 4 co-founders. You know, there's the 3 of us, and Rizzo just joined. They can run Southeast Asia without us, right? We're very, very capable. There's no focus of my time being put back into the FazWaz company and what Thailand is moving forward. So in terms of looking at what the other opportunities are, there's enough of us to cater for this. We just need to find the right people, the right entrepreneurs to work inside the company and people we trust and put them over there. So we think it's worth it, yes.
Right. Darius, who sat up here yesterday and was talking about the challenges of making money in the Indonesian market, is happy to sell you at 7 cents, and you can make your 58 cents in the process.
Sure, Darius. You know, we'll have a chat afterwards, whatever. Okay. Well, we'll give you $100 for the business. Thanks.
Okay. We'll let you guys have a chat. Are you continue to buy other portals, or just focus on what you've already got?
It's a good question. I think that we are looking at buying other. Look, there's a load of distressed assets in the market, loads of them. You've heard what's gone on recently with other companies. You've got everyone's talking about FDV. They're not any good. There's lots of distressed assets in this market. So there's deals to be taken, especially if you're on the buyer side. So we think, yeah, we will be buying more classified businesses when it makes sense, but to build on top of the foundations and move into transaction.
But assets are distressed for a reason, right?
We're going with bad operators.
Yeah.
You know, so look, I get it, but we think fundamentally, we look at some of these businesses, we don't think they've been operated correctly. That's kind of how we're viewing this.
Right, so you think there's a lot of operational error rather than macroeconomic
Yeah,
issues.
either too much spending, too much focus on something else, but just break it down to the bread and butter, and that's what we know and do well.
Yeah, and I think that, and I think Paul's presentation yesterday was a very good representation of here's the system, here's the from beginning to end, each bit. This is the optimization we're going, super regimented. And what was interesting, I was listening to you talking about taking the sales process and breaking it into chunks,
Yep.
and then using technology along the way. And I always remember, there's an old story but a good one. Going into the Foxtons office in the United Kingdom back in 2005, so about 20 years ago, and they had done exactly the same thing but without the technology. And they basically said, this is the sales process in the United Kingdom from sourcing listings through to handling phone calls. And instead of saying, well, you're the agent and you just do all of this, they literally had desks in the room and they had signs above the desk. And this was incoming rental inquiry. And that's all this desk did. And then there was another desk next to them which was making booking viewings. And that's all they did all day, just ringing people saying, do you want to go see this property? Right, we can set you up at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. Will you be there? And then they would make sure someone's got the key, which is the same concept.
Yep.
Right? And all you're doing is then applying technology
Correct.
through that process to make it super efficient so you don't need the desk.
Correct.
Okay?
Yep.
And funny enough, you walked into their office and there was desk, right? And these desks were, the wall was at one end, the desk came out from the wall. There was like 4 people on each side working, and the person in charge, the team leader, sat at the head of the desk, right? And then the guy who set it up was a sergeant major out of the army. You can see how that regimented approach paid off him because he sold it for £250 million he made in his pocket in that process. So I like what you're doing. I think there's a lot to be said about cut through the bullshit and find where the value is. Why do you believe AI can't close real estate deals given that AI is closing deals in other industries?
Okay, it can close real estate deals, let's be honest, right? Properties get bought sight unseen without speaking to any AI agent. People can go and buy now on websites. Not our website, we have a buy now function, but people buy properties without seeing or speaking to anyone, okay? So let's be clear, this is not something that already hasn't been happening. So AI can close deals, but there's something called a land registry office, which is a manual process. So once you take into the fact that the government is the slowest moving entity, and even if you had all these AI agents doing everything else, you still wouldn't be able to close the transaction. So the question is, what does close mean? Yes, it can do parts of it, and it already is, but the full search to close, it can't do it in most markets at the moment. It requires a human there. So that's just a reality situation. But I'm sure if the government adopts it, especially in emerging markets, there's possibilities of it happening.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Mike, love what you guys are doing. Well, clearly I do because I've been chatting with you about this for about 10 years, and well done. And honestly, now that you've got control of Lifull Connect and you've got all the toys to play with, good luck at making it all fit together and creating enormous value.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.